Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of your favorite podcast, The Fantasy Birds. We are back with wide receiver rankings for the 2021 fantasy football season. Let us know in the comments what you think about our picks. You think they're trash? Let us know if you think they're solid. Put in the comments. Just give us your feedback on what you think. But let's get right into 1 through 20. All right, the consensus number one wide receiver going into 2021 is going to be Davante Adams. If Aaron Rodgers stays a Green Bay Packer, if Aaron Rodgers is no longer with this team, Davante Adams is going to take a massive slide in the rankings, probably somewhere around wide receiver 5 to 6. But Aaron Rodgers is the quarterback of that team. Davante Adams is going to be the wide receiver one, over 18 touchdowns from a year ago. Davante Adams is basically their goal line running back, if we're being totally honest. Aaron Rodgers drop, slant right to Davante Adams, touchdown on the goal line. It's automatic. We love Davante Adams. We just need number 12 to remain in Green Bay. Next guy we're going to look at is Tyreek Hill, Kansas City Chiefs. Not too much to say. You have Patrick Mahomes as your quarterback. You're the number one wide receiver on the team. You're going to be dominant in fantasy football. Tyreek Hill due for another huge season with Sammy Watkins leaving the team. Tyreek Hill, maybe even a number one potential ending for him in the wide receiver rankings. Next, we got Calvin Ridley for the Atlanta Falcons. Losing Julio Jones just recently to the Tennessee Titans going to open up a lot of targets for Calvin Ridley. He didn't even need Julio Jones to leave. He was already a dominant wide receiver one with Julio Jones on the field. But relying on Calvin Ridley, we know the game script for the Atlanta Falcons, what it's got to be. This defense can't stop anybody. Calvin Ridley got to be relied upon in the receiving game with a Kyle Pitts. We love Calvin Ridley as a top 5 overall wide receiver going into 2021. Next guy we're going to look at is Steph Diggs of the Buffalo Bills. The rap for Steph Diggs in the past is he hasn't gotten the volume with the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins could not give him the volume that he wanted and desired. So he forced his way out of Minnesota, goes to the Buffalo Bills, and was he absolute insane season for Steph Diggs. Really a league winner for a lot of teams, getting him late in the mid rounds and ended up being a number 3 wide receiver. So Steph Diggs, only one game with lower than 6 targets last year. That's insane volume for Steph Diggs, and we projected another year for Steph Diggs going into 2021. To round out our top 5, we got DeAndreHopkins, could be the best wide receiver from a talent perspective in the NFL. We got him at number 5. Kyler Murray took a huge step forward last year. We project that to happen again. Only 3 games last year for DeAndreHopkins with less than 5 receptions. Absolutely insane. He's going to win every single jump ball he gets. He's the best wide receiver in the NFL, in my opinion, talent-wise. He's at number 5 for that Arizona Cardinals team, which that defense could be a little lackluster. So good game trick for Arizona in that tough NFC West. We like DeAndreHopkins, even with the additions that they've added to that team. AJ Green, we're not worried about that. DeAndreHopkins rounding out our top 5 wide receivers.
Number 6, though, is DK Metcalf. Again, we all know he's a physical specimen, one of the best young receivers in the league, one of the best deep threats in the league. And Russell Wilson showed that he went to it. Now, whether this is a lot of his value is going to come down to whether or not Seattle decides to, quote unquote, let Russ cook. If they do, then like we saw last year, if Metcalf is going to have a solid season, I'm still going to bank that they're going to try and put it in their hands more, especially with Russell Wilson potentially requesting a trade this offseason. We don't really know about that. So I think they're going to try and pass the ball more. DK Metcalf is going to have more value. Even with Tyler Lockett being there, he showed he has standalone value. Keenan Allen is at number 7 for the Chargers. The thing about Keenan Allen was that I think his fantasy career essentially has just been reinvigorated by the presence of a young quarterback with that much talent in Justin Herbert. I really like the volume that he got. He's a very good technical wide receiver, and he's good on the scramble drill, which is great because Justin Herbert really loves to roll to his right and make great throws. So again, Keenan Allen's going to get a lot of volume this season. I like him at the 7th wide receiver. A.J. Brown is going to be an interesting one. Now with the Julio trade, that's going to put things up in the air. We know that instantly the best wide receiver duo in the NFL is going to reside in Nashville, Tennessee. However, I'm looking at a run-first offense with Derrick Henry. I'm looking at offense still led by Ryan Tannehill, who I believe in terms of winning, but is he really a every week consistent fantasy threat? We saw it last year, kinda, not really. There were a lot of games where Tannehill straight up balled out and won people weeks. There were also a lot of games where he kind of underwhelmed. Justin Jefferson at number 9, incredible rookie season coming out of LSU. this is an offense in Minnesota that has proven that it can lead to multiple receivers having production, even though it's a run first offense, kind of like the situation in Nashville. Even though it's a Kirk Cousins led team, you're going to get more volume for Herb Smith this year. But even then, I still think that this is an offense that can allow Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen to both have really good production. I like his projection going forward, and I think top 10 is solid for him. Number 10, again, Michael Thomas. He had one of the best fantasy seasons ever, catching, especially in PPR formats, after catching 150 balls a year ago. I think with Michael Thomas, again, he's going to get a lot of volume, and he's going to get a lot of looks around 15 yards and beyond. I think Jameis Winston is really going to push the ball downfield more. I think a lot of the slant boy stuff you see with Michael Thomas is simply because Drew Brees couldn't throw the ball more than 10 yards downfield. So he kept having to run slant routes, but I think that Michael Thomas is going to, at the end of the day, be higher than number 10, if I'm being completely honest, because he's going to get a lot of volume. And again, also, who's the number 2 receiver in New Orleans? Is it Traquan Smith? I mean, is Adam Troutman going to come up and be a threat at tight end? I guess that would be a third. Obviously, Alvin Kamara would be the second, but it's just hard to see who's challenging him for pass catching reps. I think Michael Thomas is going to have an outstanding season and bounce back.
All right, let's get in from number 11 to number 15. We're going to start off with Allen Robinson from the Chicago Bears. Talked about him in one of our breakout videos, but Allen Robinson, what has he showed us in the past? He can be a top 20 wide receiver with Blake Bortles, Nick Foles, Mitch Trubisky. Now he gets the likes of Andy Dalton and maybe potentially Justin Fields in week 1 in a contract year for Allen Robinson. Got the franchise tag from the Chicago Bears. Allen Robinson has something to prove. Got an upgrade at quarterback. We think this guy's due for a monster season. We've seen his floor with those other less efficient quarterbacks, let's just say, but his floor is very good, around 1,000 receiving yards. We think with an upgraded quarterback, maybe even a better offense in general, he's going to have a breakout year. Next, we got Terry McLaurin for the Washington football team. New quarterback in town, Ryan Fitzmagic. We know what this guy loves to do. He loves to sling it around the yard. He goes crazy, absolutely berserk at times. Terry McLaurin with a Curtis Samuel on the other side to alleviate some of that pressure should pay dividends for Terry McLaurin. Breakout season from a year ago. We think he's going to continue for that team and for Ron Rivera. Next, we have Julio Jones of the Tennessee Titans. Before this Julio Jones trade to the Tennessee Titans, A.J. Brown was due for a monster year. We're talking eating more than Kelvin Benjamin at a Golden Corral buffet. But with Julio Jones in town, Tennessee did lose around 200 targets from a year ago with the likes of Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith leaving. So I believe this team still could benefit 2 top 20 wide receivers with all the losses they had. Also, we've seen in the past, Julio Jones doesn't need touchdowns to be fantasy relevant. In Atlanta, he struggled getting touchdowns. All he does is accumulate yards. Derrick Henry's going to punch the ball in the goal line, which could limit his upside. But Julio Jones, if he can give you 12 to 13 games this season, he's going to be a top 20 wide receiver. I'm still drafting him there. Next, we have Robert Woods for Los Angeles Rams. He was a hot pick last year in the 3rd, 4th round. We think he's going to be around the same value, but with a better quarterback. So he's going to be more efficient with his targets and even deeper targets rather than coming from a Jared Goofball last year. We got Matt Stafford in the building. They're going to sling around in LA. Sean McVay is going to have work to do with him and Cooper Kupp this year. Next, we got Dak Prescott's favorite target, Amari Cooper. Him and CeeDee Lamb are going to have very similar values. Amari Cooper, a boomer bust kind of guy last year, and really tailed off without Dak Prescott. But with Dak Prescott back in the starting lineup for the Cowboys, we know how hard that defense is going to struggle this year. They're going to give up an insane amount of points, just like they did last year. What does that mean? Amazing game script for Dak Prescott, throwing the ball all over Dallas in that new stadium for Jerry Jones, bringing in the ticket revenue, bringing in the touchdowns for Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb. Huge yardage years for them and huge touchdowns, in our opinion. We love Amari Cooper.
CeeDee Lamb is coming in at number 16. Now, a lot of this has to do with Dak Prescott coming back to the offense for Dallas here in 2021. CeeDee Lamb was very productive early in the season before that injury. I think that production alone, combined with his development, his technique coming in to season 2 with the Cowboys, I'm really excited to see what CeeDee Lamb does. I think he's kind of a wild card. I think out of this list, he's the guy that has the most variance. He can very well be a borderline top 10 fantasy receiver when the season's all said and done. That's how productive this Cowboys offense was last year. Dak Prescott was on pace to have one of the most productive seasons of all time for a quarterback last year before the injury. And again, I think because it was a bone injury, no real ligament damage, I think he'll be back to 100%. And that's one of the biggest reasons that CeeDee Lamb comes in at number 16. Number 17 is Mike Evans. I think this one's very simple. I think at this point, obviously he is a relatively well-rounded receiver, but we know what he's best at, right? Those 1-yard touchdowns, fade routes to the corners. He's one of the best in the league at those types of plays. And the Bucs exploited that as much as they could. I can't remember, to be honest, how many 1-yard touchdowns Mike Evans had and how many bad fantasy days were saved by just a couple of 1-yard touchdown fade routes. But again, when you draft Mike Evans, you just have to understand that that's where his value is going to come from. Kenny Golladay is, to me, I don't want to say boom or bust, because again, he's coming in there to be, presumably their number one receiver, but they drafted Kadarius Toney. They have Sterling Shepard over there. They have Darius Slayton. So it's a pretty deep receiver room, not to mention Evan Ingram's still going to be flexed out as kind of that slot receiver, tight end hybrid guy. I think that Kenny Golladay has potential this season, but his value is almost tied completely to Daniel Jones. DJ Moore, speaking of variance, was also very productive some weeks, and some weeks he was really not found at all. A lot of people drafted DJ Moore in the 3rd round to be maybe their wide receiver too, and if so, it was inconsistent at best. Pretty much a failure. There was times when I personally had DJ Moore in my league last year, and I couldn't trade him. I couldn't find any value for him for about 3 weeks because he struggled that much. But again, I think we're going to see a more aggressive passing offense with Sam Darnold at quarterback. I think that is a good thing for DJ Moore. Again, this offense, they brought in Terrace Marshall, but it's proven that they like to use 3 receivers and have 3 guys that you can start in fantasy lineups. I think DJ Moore is going to bounce back a little bit. Again, he's an incredible young receiver. He's really good after the catch. DJ Chark is coming in at number 20. His profile as a skilled receiver in this league, he's gotten a lot better with his routes. He's breaking people off now in ways that he didn't used to. He only used to be able to win vertically. Now you're kind of seeing a guy that can win on multiple levels of the field. But he's getting an upgrade at quarterback. Trevor Lawrence is going to come in, and again, he's one of those generational prospects. I think he'll have that offense in Jacksonville moving early on, if not in week 1.
That's our top 20 wide receiver rankings going into 2021 here in June. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys next week with another episode of your favorite podcast, the Fantasy Birds.